Sorry about that. If you didn't grow up in the punk scene or weren't familiar with punk music, the odds are you've never seen and might have never even heard of Suburbia. It was Penelope Spheeris' first full-length scripted movie and about 10 years before Wayne's World. Now, Suburbia is known for being a low-budget movie full of bad acting, but the reason why it's full of bad acting is Penelope Spheeris wanted the movie to be more real, so instead of hiring actors, she hired real punks and street kids to be in it. And I know for me personally and for my friends growing up, that was what we loved about Suburbia. The bad acting is what made it great. Now, most of these locations were super hard to find, so we really had to do some major detective work for this one. So today we're going to check out filming locations for the 1983 punk classic, Suburbia. Let's go see what we can find. Oh, and which one of you is going to be the first to tell me in the comments what song I was playing on guitar in the beginning of this video? This was the home of Evan and Ethan Johnson, and in the beginning of the movie we see Ethan riding his big wheel right here in front of the house. Now it's kind of hard to tell now with these cars in front of the house and with these bushes and trees that are around the house now, but it looks pretty much just like it did all those years ago. After Evan's mom throws a bottle at him and slaps him, he decides he's had enough. He heads into the garage right here and packs a bag of clothes, and he decides to run away. As he's walking out of the garage, his little brother Ethan comes up and asks him where he's going, and he bends down right here to have a talk with Ethan and let him know he's going to be going away for a while. After having a talk with Ethan, Evan heads down the street this way and the credits begin. And this is pretty much the shot that we get. Evan would have been somewhere down here right by the trash cans just before that lamppost. Now we see this house one more time in the movie when he comes here to pick up his little brother after his mom gets in a DUI car accident and Ethan's staying with the next door neighbors. Ethan comes running out, they throw his big wheel in the car and they drive off. Now my favorite part about this scene is the neighbor that's supposed to be watching Ethan. She comes out the front door and she sees a car drive off with him, and all she does is close the front door and go back inside and continue eating chicken. Definitely not the neighbor you want watching your kids. This is Johnny's Coffee Shop and Restaurant, and we see it during the opening credits of the movie. Thankfully, it's been preserved to look just like it did back then, and that's because it's mostly used as a filming location, and you've seen it in a bunch of different movies. Evan would have been sitting right here on this brick wall, sad and lonely with everybody in the diner behind him having dinner and having a good time. We see the punks crossing the street right here, and as they walk by Evan, you can hear them say, "What's this guy? Get a job." Evan stands up and he follows the punks that are walking down the street right here, and that's how he first meets up with TR. So I came out to Hollywood to try and find the warehouse where they would go to see the shows. I talked to Jack from TSOL and he gave me somewhat specific directions on how to find the building, but I have a bad feeling that it doesn't exist anymore. Well, going by the directions that Jack gave me, this is pretty much the area that the warehouse would have been in, but as you can see, it's all apartment buildings, somewhat newer apartment buildings, so it looks like it no longer exists. Now, I combed the entire area just in case maybe we were off one or two streets, but yeah, pretty much this whole area has been developed and it's all houses and apartment buildings and newer studios, so it looks like the warehouse is long gone. This is the spot where Jack's car breaks down. They would have stopped right there against the curb, and in the movie there's a Frito-Lay truck blocking some of those buildings, much like the one that we see today. They have to push the car through the intersection right here, and then they end up stopping right here in front of this building, which at the time was a gas station, and it's still the same building, it's just missing the gas pumps and the awning. Jack's car is stopped right here and he gets out to take a look under the hood, and we see the two motorcycle cops come from around the corner right here, and this apartment building across the street can be seen. And then these apartment buildings over here can be seen in the background behind Jack. Now right here is the spot where Jack throws the bottle at the bus. As they're pulling up, you can see these two houses, and then they pull up behind the bus, and they're pretty much right in this spot. You can see this utility pole in the shot, and as the bus pulls away, you can see this carport right here. I'm on the 605 right now, headed out to try and find what used to be the abandoned neighborhood that was used in Suburbia. Now, if you remember in the movie, Evan asked Jack,
"What's TR house?"
It's one of those houses out by the 605.
So from what I know, many years ago, the city bought up this entire neighborhood when they were getting ready to build the 105 freeway. And the houses that ended up being in the way of construction got torn down, and then the houses that ended up not being in the way of construction got fixed up and then resold by the city. So most of the houses that we see in the movie are no longer around. It's where the 105 freeway now is. But there's a few houses that we see in the movie that are still around today. When they're first on their way to TR house, we see them driving by all these houses and they're all boarded up and abandoned. We get a really good shot of this house right here. It even has the address spray painted right on the front. As they pass by this house, we get a really good shot of this house next door as well. As you can see, everything matches up. So pretty much it was this entire area right here. Now, I don't know exactly how far out that way it stretched, but I know that all these houses right here were part of it. Now, this entire neighborhood at the time would have been abandoned. All these houses would have been boarded up. Now, the TR house, the address was 13015, and that address would have been right here, what's now the 105 freeway. So sadly, the TR house no longer exists. The scenes where they go shopping were filmed inside this neighborhood and the neighborhood right across the way. Now, there were quite a few things filmed inside these neighborhoods, so let's go see what we can find. Now, you might recognize this intersection right here because it looks completely untouched. When they first come into the neighborhood, they stop the car right here, and Skinner gets out and picks up the dead cat that's in the middle of the street, and he throws it on the dashboard of the car. Everything right here looks exactly the same, even that crooked utility pole off in the distance. We see them coming down the street right here. They see their first open garage door, and Skinner yells for Jack to pull over. And as they're pulling over, you can see this house right here. It's no longer painted yellow, but that's the same house. And they pull up right in front of this house, and that's the first garage that they raid. Evan would have been standing right here keeping watch. This tree branch wasn't here at the time, but this is where he was standing. After throwing that dead cat that they picked up into the dryer, they come running out of the garage, throw all the food in the car, and take off to the next garage. Now, this one's kind of hard to see because of this motorhome right here and because of all of those cars parked in the driveway, but this is the second house they go to where the owner comes out and jumps them. Now, this wall right here with the gate on top is totally unmistakable, along with the gate over by the garage and that slanted garage wall right by the door. All of that matches up perfectly to what we see in the movie. The one thing that looks different, though, is the mailbox. Now, in the movie, it had somewhat of a unique mailbox. It's since been updated. However, the house right next door, this wall and the mailbox still look exactly the same. Because if you remember, their car was actually parked in the neighbor's driveway, and we see Skinner come running out throwing all the stakes into the car. And this house across the street over here with the hill on the side, it can also be seen in the movie and looks exactly the same. Now, this house directly across the street was also used in the movie, kinda, sorta. Later in the movie, they come back here, and this is where the house used to be, where they steal the front lawn. Now, if you look on Google Maps, the house still looks exactly like it did in the movie, but I arrived today and found out that the house has recently been torn down and this brand new house has been built. Now, this is the street where they're having the yard sale, and I believe those two houses at the end are the houses of Skokes and Triplet. Right here in front of this house is where we see the two kids just standing blankly staring at the camera. And right over here in front of this house is where we see that lady with the amazing red mullet. I mean, that was a pretty outrageous haircut for those times. She looked like she belonged more with the TR kids than with these people. The truck with the camper on the back would have been parked right over here, and they're showing it to the potential buyer. And when the camera shoots this way, we find out that, lucky for him, his snazzy sweater matches the house behind him. Right over here is where those ladies were sitting, and it looks like the area behind them has been remodeled and maybe turned into another section of the house. Now Jack pulls up and he parks his car sideways right here in front of this house. He gets out and he walks up to the tables that would have been right here in the middle of the street, and he asks, well, you know what, I'm going to keep it PG and I'm not going to tell you what he asks, but if you've seen the movie, then you already know. They jump back in their car and they drive off that way as Skokes and Triplet chase after him. This is probably one of the most iconic locations in the movie. This is the spot where we see all of them walking down the sidewalk in slow motion, and this became a really famous scene in the movie, and it also became the cover of the VHS and later the DVD and all the movie posters. And right here, this is where it took place. How awesome. Now they're walking right by this house. When it shows close-ups of their face, you can see this arched doorway right here and this curved carport. And if you look around on Google, there's actually a far away shot that wasn't used in the movie, and in that picture it shows this entire house. We see Skinner walking right here just after getting hit in the head with the microphone, and that's when the two meatheads pull up wearing those awesome wigs, and they ask Skinner,
"Hey, what's that TR stand for? Totally ridiculous?"
Now they end up pulling over and stopping right here, and they get into that big brawl with Skinner right in front of this house. Pretty much that entire scene took place right here on what used to be the front lawn of this house. Now we see the rest of TR walking right here, and they see Skinner getting into the fight, so they come running over to help him. And a little bit later in that scene, we see some more punks walking this way, but when they see the old man come running out with the shotgun, they take off and they run the other direction. Right here by this window, he's got him pinned up against the house, and that's when the old man comes out with the shotgun and scares everybody off. Now, besides the front lawn being replaced by drought-friendly plants, other than that, it still looks pretty much the same. This is the mini market that they were hanging out in front of, and the spot where Razzle makes the Easter eggs. Now, I can't believe this place is still called J Market after all these years. Right there, that's where Razzle was hanging out, and where we see him spray paint TR right there on that window. Not only can I not believe that the market's still called J Market, but I can't believe that the place next door is still a laundromat. Right here, that's the bench that the two girls were sitting on panhandling, and the two old ladies come walking out of that door right there, and they ask them for money. Right there, that's the spot they would have been sitting, right in front of that window. Everybody's hanging out right here by the front door, and that's when the store clerk comes out and asks everybody to leave. And of course, after that, they come walking into the store. And right there in front of the counter, that's where Razzle grabs the jar of pickled eggs and dumps the blue slushy into it, making the Easter eggs. After that, they come out here and they jump in their car and they take off that way. And right here where this white car is to my left, this was a photo mat at the time. Right here is where the Burbank Elks Lodge used to be, and it's where they had the Citizens Against Crime meeting. But as you can see, the Elks Lodge no longer exists. It's been replaced by this outdoor shopping mall. Now, if you've seen the movie, the odds are you recognize this location because it looks exactly like it did in the movie. This was Sheila's parents' house, and we see all of TR come here to let Sheila's parents know that Sheila passed away. Now, while they're standing on the porch talking to her dad, the camera shoots this way, and you can see this house across the street, mostly those steps leading down to the sidewalk. So awesome to see that the house still looks the same. This building used to be the Abbott and Hast mortuary, and although a lot of things have changed, I'm pretty sure this is the mortuary where they have Sheila's funeral. Now right off the bat, you can see that the roof line's the same, along with this flagpole and utility pole and this lamppost over here. There's also been a lot of changes to the amount of windows on the front of the building, but probably the biggest change is the entrance on the side of the building where everybody enters to go to Sheila's funeral. So right here is where the entrance would have been, and even though there's no longer a door here, if we look up, the top of the building still looks the same. But I think what pretty much tells me that this is the right location is if we look down the sidewalk right here, we get the same shot as when they're running away from the funeral. Now they would have come running out of the mortuary right here and then took off down the sidewalk, and these houses just on the other side of the parking lot still match up perfectly. Also, notice right over here the freeway overpass, which is kind of hard to see now because of the trees. But if we walk down here, you can get a better shot of the freeway, and you can actually see this sign right here, which can be seen in the movie. So although the mortuary building itself is a lot different now, the freeway and the houses just on the other side of the building pretty much tell me that this is the right location. Right here where Honda of Hollywood is, this used to be the Kit Kat Club, which was the gentleman's club that Skokes and Triplet hung out at. Now, although the Kit Kat Club's been torn down, this building next door can be seen in the movie. Pay attention to this utility pole in front. Alright, that's gonna do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I know this isn't a very well-known movie, and I'm really curious to see if this video can even get 1,000 views. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you go do that right now, and I'll see you next time.